Hey guys, one of you had asked that I try different factions. That's usually what I try and do, but I guess it seems like I've been sticking to a couple of the same old, same old. In particular, someone asked that I try playing with Parthia, so I went ahead and did that. And it's actually going to be a very cool battle, very mobile battle. And so you'll see the troops that I brought are going to be 4 slingers, 2 archers, 3 hoplites, an elephant to anchor that force, give it a little bit of weight, and then I have 3 of my heavy cataphracts along with 3 of the, I believe those are Sarmatian mercenary archers, and then 2 of those really cheap, I think they're Sarmatian lancers, and that's going to be my cavalry component. So you can see most of my cavalry isn't that great. Oh yeah, and I also have the camel spearmen. That's going to be to instill more fear, help me turn the cavalry fight. So you can see I have a cavalry wing and then a infantry wing that's mostly going to be based off of skirmishers. Now that's kind of historically how the Parthians and Eastern factions would have fought. You guys had asked that I describe how the tactics works. Oh, and here I'm kind of trying to describe how in the battle when I recorded this, I wanted to have that for reference for like sort of my game plan, so I was just trying to show how I'm going to charge through the center and flank with my cav. But anyways, you guys were asking sort of what, since I've shown Hannibal's tactics, Roman tactics a lot, what might have been the Eastern strategies. I don't know as much about Eastern strategies, but what I do know is usually in the battles where they fought against Rome, they would have had a reliance strongly on their cavalry. That would have been their strongest component, harassing with heavy Cappadocians who would, well, actually I'll start off with this. Their main threat would have been their horse archers, light cavalry, that could get in and out of the conflict. These guys right here who would have led the fight, harassed the enemy, done scouting, attacked the rear ranks, really tried to pick the force apart. And the main point was maybe they didn't do that much damage, but it was to goad the enemy, make them really nervous, and try and get them to chase these archers and these skirmisher units. So once they were chased, that's when the Easterners would usually follow up with the heavy cavalry charge with their Cappadocians. This would be done against troops that were in the middle of a pursuit against cavalry who were retreating. And so the troops could have 2 options. One would be to hold their ground. That would be a little tenuous because at this point, because they're in a chase, they would be kind of out of order. But if they did that, they would have to face up to a cavalry charge. Another option would be for them to retreat and try and fall back into formation with the main body of their army. If that were the case, the Eastern archers would just go ahead, turn around and chase them, and the whole process would repeat. The main thing would be when the main bodies of the Romans and the Easterners would clash. Usually that would mean that the victory would go to the Romans, mostly because the Romans were superior in their infantry. And so you have the Eastern infantry was usually comprised of, yes, they did have hoplites, particularly Pontus, which would field lots of sort of semi-Hellenistic kingdoms. They would have a lot of hoplites and, yeah, reinforced with archers and all sorts of a variety of troops. I also really like this battle because it's me, not against the Romans, but against another sort of similar factions. So it's going to be here an army of Bactrians. They're going to be heavily armed with sort of an equal build. However, instead of having the more mobile infantry that I have, he's going to be having a lot of pikes. But take a look here, mass cavalry. Over here, I'm going to be focusing my attention on his front ranks of troops. I know that if I can break those with my archers, I can do significant amounts of damage, to the rest of his forces who won't be supported. So you can see me here targeting with my mercenary archers and slingers on his troops that are defending his horse archers. So, or actually, never mind, take that back. I've been targeting his Bactrian horse archers. But in any case, I'm doing focus fire on them, and you can also see that my forces are in the forest, which is going to heavily diminish the amount of damage I take. And yeah. Focus firing, as I've said in previous videos, is definitely the way to go. It means that you can get a chain route going. It also means that you can just obliterate certain forces and then everyone will topple after that. I'm going to start telling my slingers to target his guys. So you can see here I'm having overwhelming amounts of damage against his forces. He has 4 archers against 3 of mine and then 4 slingers that are shooting, so that's going to come down to me. I'm also mitigating my losses, as I said, by being in the forest. And you can see his forces here I think are more upgraded or slightly better quality than my horse archers. However, that won't really matter given the way the battle is progressing at the moment. So this is going to negate his advantage. that you can see right here. This is also how Eastern armies would have fought historically. There would have been a big cavalry exchange like this, a prolonged engagement with the horse archers going on for a while, and then followed up by probably cavalry charges on the flanks, maybe even the center, an exchange of perhaps elephant charges or chariots, and then you would have had the main infantry fight in the center. However, mostly it would have been decided by the time the cavalry had engaged and the archers had engaged. Mostly because the infantry of the Easterners wasn't necessarily the greatest part or the core of an army. It was mostly there just to be a center to fall back and retreat around, but in and of itself it wasn't that powerful, and that's mostly due to the geography of the East, the prevalence of nomadic tribes, and sort of the cultural history of the region. So at this point in the battle, I have been able to force my opponent back into the forest. He's retreated in here. It's a little ominous, so I'm going to use my forces and swing around the side. You can also see that I still have some forces in the back hidden away. Those are going to be always part of my sort of a trap that I like to keep. Anyways, I'm going to reform my slingers here because I know he's probably going to be pushing forward. And yeah, I know that he has armored elephants, which are going to be very hard to get rid of. So it's time to start setting up my forces. I'm going to be setting them up in a couple rows just so that if his elephants charge, you know, he gets caught on the first rank and my back two can retreat. Also, you'll notice that I put my guys on very long, thin lines. That's to decrease the amount of damage incoming fire might do. All of a sudden he charges back out with his cavalry. The remaining the remaining missile cavalry, that's going to be a huge setback for me because it means all of a sudden I have to retreat full force on this flank. However, my archers can shoot in reverse, which is going to be good, but I'm in no position to turn around and attack these guys because he just has overwhelming numbers, and you can see he is chasing with his bow cav right behind them, so they're going to be doing supporting fire. At the same time, I'm going to get off a pretty sick flank attack on these guys. And take a look at this. The fact that I have brought along camels is going to be a very big turning factor in this battle. Right here you can see I engage my charge, and even though I have some lesser valued troops, the Sarmatian Lancers, they're not that good. They're going to decimate his cavalry just because the nearby camels are going to do a lot of morale damage. And yeah, you can see right there the camels finish off those troops. Definitely very good. I was able to just absolutely demolish those forces there. Also keep in mind those are citizen cavs, so maybe not the best, especially when they're charged by, you know, shock cavalry, spear cavalry that are basically designed for the charge. So I did a lot of damage there, and then the spearmen definitely helped me finish off that fight, so that's something I would recommend doing, of course, is having spearmen in your forces. At last minute I'm going to pop that ability on my general, which is really going to finish that off. I'm going to try and tell my bow cav to move around, because I don't want them firing to the blob that is mostly made out of my men. So yeah, right here I obliterated his cavalry wing. Something that I would recommend doing, of course, is using the cav that I had in my build. Cheap lancers to soak up charges and deliver charges, and then camels to break the opponent's morale. Seeing this, my opponent is going to decide to charge full force with his army here. You can see he has mostly pikes as well as a backup of sword infantry, and then the elephants lumbering in the back. So that's probably the best move he could have done. However, the problem is there's nothing to force me to engage with his troops. What I'm going to do is just fall back, and you can see how my skirmishers are sort of, half of them are retreating, half of them are firing. That's something you want to do to keep the fire on. And specifically I'm targeting the flanks, so I'm going to be picking off his forces there, and you can just see how much damage it's doing to his pike wall. I know once I can break his pike wall, I can deal with the rest. Myself having my own pikes, I'll be able to hold off his forces, and then come in the back with my cavalry. So over here he's sending some forces chase after my guys. That's fine, I'm just going to sort of fade into the background. And over here I'm going to be continuing to kite, move my forces back. And every unit that is peeling off here, as I said earlier, you know, the units that peel off to try and chase my cav, well then they're just going to get picked off by, you know, cavalry charges or additional archers. So right here I'm going to try and do heavy shot on these guys, do as much damage as possible. And the elephants actually have been isolated here, so I'm going to try and target them, make them rampage. So I'm going to tell these guys to turn around, and we're going to go on to a heavy shot actually for those guys, reform some of my cav, and start bringing these guys back into the battle. I know I don't have to chase off his guys in the distance quite yet. Slingers are still in the forest there. They're going to turn around and get a sick shot on the flanks of his chasing units. I'm going to move in my elephants to intercept. And at the same time here, I have, you know, my heavy shot going right into these elephants, so they should be weakened, their health should be down, so I'm going to line up my cataphracts for a charge soon. the elephants are turning around. I can see they're gaining on me, so I'm going to turn around, try and form up a mass blob. Just as that happens, his forces turn around. I don't quite want to engage because his pikes are there, so I'm going to make sure to keep picking off his forces while I still can, before the fight engages and I risk friendly fire. Over here I figure, let's deliver a decisive blow to his elephants. So I change up some of the targeting on my archers, and here we go for the charge. I don't expect doing too much damage against his elephants, but I know cataphracts with their heavy armor will be able to do a good amount and not suffer too much from his elephants, who are at this point already engaged and low on health. So that's going to start turning the fight there. Here you can see his elephants are going to be targeting my men, but I do have a lot of troops focusing fire on them. So, they may get into the thick of my phalanx, destroy one or two of them, but at the end of the day, it's not going to be enough. You can see them here charging straight into one of my groups. They were at a standstill, so they held pretty well, and I'm going to be turning another group against them. Here you go, you can see the whole force deciding to chase after me. They know that standing there is going to be reckless, they're going to get picked apart, so yeah, this is the beginning of the end for my opponent. Elephants are going to come in and hit this softened mess. If my opponent turns around, I'm going to hit him with cataphracts. Look at the left, more cavalry are charging into his blob, and here we're going to get a nice elephant charge. And it might be right into his spears, but that's fine, they weren't perfectly formed. And now we're going to have some cataphracts charging in from the back, and we're going to take a look at this charge right here. As he's trying to hold off my elephants, cataphracts, boom, whacked in the back. So this is typical Eastern strategy, would be to draw out your opponents like this, harass them with your archers, and then attack from all directions and surround the isolated groups with your various heavy cav and stuff like that. So the Eastern armies would have had to deal a lot with attacking and retreating, pulling the enemy in, a lot of kiting. And, it was interesting to see when that came up against the Romans, who were all about just engaging directly, having reinforcements and discipline. But discipline in the sense of keeping up the fight. The Easterners had discipline in the sense of retreating and baiting the enemy in. So when those two forces did fight, you could have vastly different outcomes. And it was really interesting. So you might have huge setbacks, like when Crassus was defeated by large forces in the east, and a lot of different outcomes for these types of battles. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this a little bit of look at history, but also a different type of battle. Take a look at the forces fielded by my opponent. A lot of citizens in cav, a lot of archers, and two of those elephant units, and you can see his pike really did no damage at all. My archers and skirmishers on the other hand did a lot, and especially my own heavy cataphracts did a huge amount of damage. So that's how I would tell you to probably wield your Parthians in a historical way and how to defeat other armies. So see you guys next time. Thanks so much.